and welcome to Wide Angle this week. Our headlines for the last year or so have been rocked by scandals, scams, and the latest, of course, the internecine war within the country's premier investigative agency, the CBI. Now, what does it mean when two senior officers of the institution hurl charges at each other, when those charges end up in the Supreme Court, when the Chief Justice of India intervenes and wants to ensure that the agency receives autonomy and independence to conduct its inquiry? Questions are naturally asked about what the motivations are, what the scandals are, what the accusations are, and how much will they hold water. But in all this, perhaps the biggest question of them all, do we as citizens of the country retain our trust in these institutions that are essentially meant to uphold our freedoms, our democratic principles, or do we not? And if we don't, what happens next? To discuss these issues, we have with us former Joint Director in the CBI, N.K. Singh, who's written about his own experiences in the agency and what ails it, and also former diplomat Vivek Katju of the IFS to give us a broader perspective on what the challenges are that confront India's institutions today. Before further ado, can I get to you, sir, Mr. N.K. Singh, to ask you, in a sense, what is your view on this fight that's taken place between two very senior officers in the CBI? The charges of corruption against one versus those against another, and yet there seems to be a side taking that's going on over here. Who is right, who is not, who decides, and can we protect the institution?
It is actually not a fight. It won't be called appropriate to call it a fight. It's a legal battle that is going on between the two, and all this is happening because a situation has been created by someone else, the government of the day. I mean, if you take away right person from the organization, from an agency, and put wrong persons, and with an agenda, and try to give charge to him of the organization, even if he is not fit for that, or there are questions about it, or he is not senior enough, and the way is cleared for him, and all sorts of things are done to do that, well, such a thing will happen. It is bound to come. So this is what it is. That is the reason for all the problem, because CBI was founded by Lal Bahadur Shastri. He nurtured it, and it developed into a great agency, a premier central agency enjoying the trust of the people. Now what it has come to today, it has become almost non-functional. It is not functioning. I mean, Supreme Court observed that what CBI, what investigation, where is the CBI, who will do the investigation? This is what it has been reduced to. So why it has happened, the diagnosis has to be done. Persons accountable for this have to be identified, because otherwise such things will happen again, and the cure will also not come. Yes.
Right. Mr. Katju, if I can ask you to elaborate, the individuals concerned, Rakesh Asthana, Alok Verma, there seems to be a political side taking that's gone on, backing one individual against the other on the basis of what is in the public domain. The most recent sort of turn in this story is what we saw happen in the Supreme Court last week, when Alok Verma, who has been ousted from his position, was giving answers to the Central Vigilance Commissioner on what he felt were the problems, where he's taken names of the NSA. He's talked about how the directions to have him removed came directly from the Prime Minister's office under questionable circumstances. The Chief Justice is now angry about those answers entering the public domain. But why shouldn't they be in the public domain?
Maya, all through this very unfortunate period, what is happening in the CBI, I have been asking myself the question whether judicial intervention in these matters has helped us systemically. And I have reached the conclusion that it has not. Let us pause and go back to fundamentals. Our system's basis, our constitutional system's basis is that an executive will be accountable to Parliament.
Right.
If that is not proper, then I am afraid all the substitutes that have been attempted have not worked and cannot work. What have been the substitutes? The judiciary decided in its wisdom that the power of appointment of judges will vest with it. Earlier, the constitution had stated that judges will be appointed by the executive in consultation
With the
judiciary.
judiciary, right.
The judiciary interpreted this to say that consultation means that whatever we will say will finally hold. In the CBI's case, the judiciary intervened and created an elaborate structure to try to insulate it from the actions of the executive. My belief is that our constitution rests on the principle that an executive is responsible for governance and it is accountable to Parliament.
Okay.
If the Parliament doesn't perform its functions properly, then the people must demand that it does. Second, that the way of putting an ankush, as it is said in Hindi, to control, to constrain the executive, which has been attempted because of pressures of civil society, because of judicial intervention, have they worked? They haven't. And the CBI's case is a prime example. Therefore, ultimately, if a political class as a whole is not governing this country properly, and I'm not taking a party position, as a citizen, if I look at this situation and I find that the political class is not performing its functions properly, and Sir is a very senior retired police person, I've spent some years in the civil service. I retired in 2011, and I'm afraid along with the political class, if the civil service as a whole is not performing its functions properly, then the people must demand that they do. There is no substitute to that.
Right, okay, but so you're making the point about how this is possibly judicial overreach in a sense, that this essentially trying to insulate the CBI. But in, Mr. N.K. Singh, if I can bring this back to you, the role of the CBI as a tool of politicians, to settle scores is something also that people have talked about, and that's what is the charge that's being made at this point in time, that the settling scores has not only been about targeting opposition, political opposition, but also in a sense playing out amongst officers in themselves, those who are seen to have certain connections depending on which side of the proverbial aisle that they are on. The institution itself has been under a cloud. This is not the first time. This is just a different level at which that sort of, the cloud has burst.
You see, you mentioned tool. Now, knife is a tool. If it gets into the hand of a criminal, he will kill somebody or do something. If it lands in the hand of a surgeon, he can save the life. So, CBI as a tool, I mean, those who control the CBI, who govern the CBI, suppose they want to misuse the CBI, then it becomes a tool of politicians. And it is for this reason that this matter was agitated in the Supreme Court, and a bench headed by Justice J.S. Burma gave certain directions, and CBC Act was framed. And then even Lokpal Act is now there, though Lokpal institution is not in its place. Now, there are certain safeguards, so that CBI is not used, or the political class is not able to use it as a tool. Now, in this case, let us suppose we examine it in the context of today's problem, then perhaps we will be able to be clear about what is happening, what has happened, and what is happening now. Now, you said about political backing of Alok Verma. I am not aware of any political backing that Alok Verma is getting. There may be
of both of them.
No,
I said,
no, but yes, both.
Yeah.
But what is the political backing that Alok Verma is getting? I am not aware. For instance, Asthana very much, though he was my SP. I know him. Not that I was fond of him, but certainly I am sorry to say, the entire problem crisis in present crisis started because they wanted to push Asthana up.
Right.
And just before, one previous director CBI, Anil Sinha, was about to retire. And 3 days before the retirement, there was another officer who, just I will take
Yeah,
1
yeah,
minute.
yeah, sure, go
clarify the
ahead, go
position.
ahead, yeah.
There was another person named R.K. Datta. He had also worked as SP under me, and so also Asthana. Now, R.K. Datta is a fine officer, tried and tested officer. He was brought to CBI for the second time from Karnataka. He was promoted, he was additional director, he was promoted as just a minute, special director. When he was about to get promotion, on the door of promotion, 3 days before retirement of Anil Sinha, he was thrown out of CBI. Now you just see, so the trouble started there. Had R.K. Datta been made director CBI, but the power that be at that time, this crisis would not have come at all. The system would have worked very well. But if the system is misused by the power that be, then these things happen. And now what happens? He is thrown out of CBI.
Right.
He is due for promotion. And Asthana, who was additional director, he is given charge of CBI as interim director. Now he is supposed to be blue-eyed man and all that. I don't want to go and merit and demerit of the whole thing. But fact remains the established fact that Asthana was made interim director, and R.K. Datta was thrown out of CBI. Why? What is the reason? He is due for promotion. He is a tried and tested officer. You have promoted him as a special director from the rank of additional director. So you had a motive, and the motive was to give CBI in the hands of Asthana.
Correct.
And manipulate it.
Right.
But it does not always work like that, There are people yes.
What I meant by political backing, I mean, is in this particular circumstance now, the way it has unfolded, the opposition has seized on a support and a defense of Alok Verma, and basically also in a sense saying that look at the fact that these answers he has given to the CVC highlight certain names and certain individuals. So that's essentially...
There are two sections. No, as far as political opposition is concerned, it will always exploit a situation like this. It is their duty in a parliamentary form of government.
Correct.
In a democracy. Opposition will do it. But there is a class, law-abiding citizens, public-spirited people like Prashant Bhushan and others.
Right.
I mean, they are not in opposition. They have fought against the Congress. They are fighting against BJP today.
Right.
Because they feel after CBI, people have got vested interest. They want CBI to be an independent, impartial, investigating agency. And if things are done to damage this or spoil this.
So in your opinion, given this and given that's what essentially the petitions are also about, in order to say, look, what is going on in the CBI? I mean, this cannot happen, cannot be allowed to happen. The parliament and the role of parliament question aside, I want to ask you, what do you think about the fact that this has reached the top court, that we have the Chief Justice of India essentially overseeing this entire case and the process, but again bringing us back to the question that if there are questions the CBC is asking Alok Verma about what transpired, what his answers are, why should those answers not be in the public domain? Why is this this sort of idea that they're in a sealed envelope and they should not be told to the public? Why should the public not know?
I just one second. What Mr. Katju has said, I totally agree that parliamentary system of government must function. Parliament, is it functioning? Parliament session is being cut short. Prime Minister of the country hardly attends Parliament. These are things which we hear. But that is a very broad and very correct situation. We are talking about CBI. Now, what did you ask just now about?
I asked you about
the
case.
That is a matter sub judice. It is within the domain of the Chief Justice of India. Well, we cannot comment on that. I may have my views. I may agree with you or may not agree with you. But I would not like to comment on that. But it is good that these things are agitated in the Supreme Court of India. Otherwise, things will just go on. Yes.
So, coming back to you, Mr. Katju, I mean, you've made an extremely valid point about, when Parliament doesn't function, how can you expect anything else to function, which sort of is answerable in a sense to Parliament. But Parliament not functioning is something we have been complaining about as journalists now, pretty much for the bulk of my career. We see this time and again, irrespective of who's in office, irrespective of which political party is in office, those who are in opposition do not allow the House to function. Legislation goes pending, people are saying that if we don't trust these institutions, we have no choice but to go to the court. And we've seen it happen in the case of several cases, right now.
I think you are right. For the last 3 decades and more, that has been the route that this country has taken.
So do you think coalition politics is responsible?
No. I'm coming to a more generic point. Instead of debates in Parliament, there are now debates in TV studios.
That's true.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Therefore, my simple question is this, and that is a question I ask myself as a citizen. Have all the endeavors of the last 30 years worked? Has the system improved? And I reach the answer, no, it has not. So, has judicial supervision, judicial independence worked? Sir is an expert of the CBI. Today, what is the khichdi? You have, under Supreme Court directions, corruption cases superintended, whatever that may mean, by the CVC. Other matters, the government superintends.
Very correct. I
Now,
agree with you.
should this dichotomy be there?
Yes.
What I'm saying is this. Why shouldn't the CBI be completely under the control of the government? As a prosecuting agency, just hear me out, sir.
No, you're right. You're right.
And as a people, we demand that CBI, superintended by the government, is accountable to the government and to the people, and just hear me out, and create parliamentary structures to ensure that this is done under the law, etc. Right? And that would perhaps be the route. But if you take away the control of the government from the prosecuting agencies and then expect that the government would be fair, I think it has not worked. The political class has made this into a kind of a football.
It is.
All that I am saying is that the time has come when we, and I suppose the judiciary too, must say that, look, these are not our functions. This is the function of Parliament to hold the executive accountable. We are here under the Constitution as it was to ensure that justice is done to the people. And only in very rare cases will we intervene in the system. The judicial interventions, my simple question is, has it improved matters? No. The answer I reach is no. If you have another answer, please tell me.
But let me ask you that, Mr. N.K. Singh.
This is a very important point that he has raised. You see, one of the things which is ailing CBI today is the system of diarchy. But this is not an old problem. Problem has been created from 2003, CBC Act of 2003. It provided that superintendents of over CBI in matters of investigation of corruption cases will be with the CBC, while the rest of the supervision will be. So it is a diarchy.
Why have
this diarchy is in any case wrong. 1929
Yes.
Act, they introduced and
Diarchy is a result of fundamentally just the trust in the institution being diminished.
No. I'm just telling. There are certain safeguards are necessary so that political class, the executive, always has a tendency to misuse this position, to misuse these agencies. So certain safeguards were provided under the Supreme Court orders, and rightly so, also in Lokpal, so that there are clear lines drawn. We are having parliamentary system of government. Here, lines are, as far as the relationship between government of the day and investigating agency, or for that matter police is concerned, lines are very clearly done right from UK, that in investigation matters, the CBI or the police is accountable to court of law. And that is absolutely very healthy system. It is accountable to court of law. But as far as governance over this agency is concerned, it should lie with the government of the day, no doubt about it. Otherwise, what happened? When the whole thing was coming up for months, now government was just watching. Had they taken the situation in hand in time, then this midnight coup would not have been necessary. Of course, the other aspect is, once the problem came, largely of the creation of the government of the day, I'm sorry, because R.K. Datta was thrown out, Asthana was promoted, then Alok Verma was brought, and then there was fight going on, and everybody was, and CBC was not discharging its duties properly, and all that. And then they decided, when things went out of control, and Director CBI registered a corruption case against his own special director. I am not going to merit or demerit. So decided to intervene. Now it was handled by Mr. Ajit Doval. How is he? What locus standi he has got to handle CBI matters or to deal with the situation like this? So overnight, midnight coup. Why do you have to do it? Why do you have to put the CBI headquarters under siege?
That's right, and I think that's a very important point, Mr. Katju, because at the end of the day, fair enough, what is the role of the courts when it comes to the functioning of the CBI, and these are questions when
the role of court is very important.
But I'm saying that's the question he's also asking in terms of this particular case. But the way it was handled, this midnight coup that he's talking about, the fact that Mr. Doval's name has been brought into this, questioned in this. You talk about it must have be under political control, but that political control is being misused. So what do you do?
My answer to that is I'm not on this specific issue. Not on this specific issue. I am talking as an overall issue.
Got it, right.
Because allegations on political misuse of the CBI has been made against all governments.
That's right.
It is not only...
Which is why then is government control over it such a good thing?
No. This is what I am saying. That we have tried the other route when you tried to make it, to see that the CBI will be an independent parrot and not a caged parrot. Right? Making it an independent parrot, has it worked? It is impossible to make it an...
I think the question is it become an independent parrot at all?
Just hear me out. The point is that under the law, there is a certain scheme for the police to function. Am I wrong, sir?
Yeah.
Under the law, there is a scheme provided. All that I am saying is that if that scheme is not adhered to, then all the substitutes that you try don't work.
Okay.
That is what I am saying. They simply don't work. The judicial interventions that have tried to see that somehow the judiciary gives an order and that works. No, it will not. It works only in two cases. One, through the political class performing its function as is required under the constitution, and the police and the civil service performing their functions. What we've tried is, we've assumed that since कि भाई ये तो काम करेगा नहीं, हाँ ये नहीं काम करेगा, तो फिर हम कुछ और देखें रास्ता. दूसरा रास्ता जो आप देख रहे हैं वो काम नहीं कर रहा है. इसलिए I am saying that let us my one last point. That is what I am submitting. Let us go back to the basics and demand of our political class and our bureaucracy that please make it function, because the rest of the ways it has not functioned.
But the counter to that, and that's exactly what I'm trying to understand over here, is if we are expected to go and demand of our leaders to make our institutions function, and our leaders seem to be not listening to what we are saying, then is the court not the only route we have left?
Well, you can...
You see, one thing we must remember, that apart from government, CBI, judiciary, there are people of this country.
That's exactly what I'm asking about.
And they have stakes in everything. They have stakes in the functioning of the parliament, accountability of the cabinet to the parliament. They have stakes in independence of judiciary. They have also stakes that police or the CBI are not misused by the political authority who have control over them. And so if the citizens feel that that is threatened, so that stake is there. So where they will go? In our system allows that people can go to the judiciary, because judiciary has the ultimate responsibility to enforce rule of law, to guarantee rights to the citizen. So that performance, that role judiciary will perform, must perform and should perform. That is no doubt about that. Now what you see, but about the first thing that is said, if you have a diarchy, the CBC is also having supervision over CBI. Government certainly must have the supervision. You see, administrative supervision of the CBI must lie with the government, which is accountable. CBC is not accountable to the parliament. Government is accountable. This is our system. So this was given under CBC Act of 2003. We had opposed it. I have written pieces at that time that this is a very wrong thing, and we are seeing it today. And then so this is what it is. Now what has happened, the safeguards also have to provide it. There are certain safeguards, but if you misuse your power, if you do not act according to law
Then
of
you
the land,
leave
rule
the
of the
space
land,
wide open
right,
for
and
this.
you remove the right person from the key positions and bring wrong persons, and then allow this thing to grow, then who is responsible? Then judiciary must not it.
I have no doubt that the judiciary is there so that people can approach it when they are aggrieved. That's our system. I have only two comments. The first is that has this worked?
Okay. I take your point.
If it has not worked, then should we not look at alternatives? And the alternative that I find searching my mind is to ensure that we go back to the old system properly. And my second point, as a citizen, I have the same expectation of the judiciary. With the greatest respect, and I have to have great respect, if you permit me a personal reference, I have come from a family which has been involved in the judiciary for the last 100 years.
And continues to be.
And continues to be. Has the judiciary, it must introspect, has it performed its functions properly? So therefore, what am I saying? The time has come when citizens, as citizens, we must collectively ask that our institutions function as the Constitution requires that they function, and that once you depart and try judicial engineering, it has not improved systems. That is all. If this had worked, I would have said good, but it has not worked.
So this kind of tinkering perhaps is not the right answer. But Mr. Singh, do you feel
I agree with him, but partially.
with a caveat?
Okay, with a caveat, sorry. Because, like any other institution in the country,
Right.
judiciary has not worked, but judiciary has worked also. There are any number of instances where, but for judiciary, there would have been havoc.
True.
Absolutely. Intervention of judiciary was sought here this occasion. Let us.
No, I am only talking of these things.
No,
Of course,
no,
the judiciary has a great record on protecting citizens' rights.
For
Who can
the
deny
present
that?
crisis in CBI. Now, how judiciary has intervened? It has not intervened on its own.
No, people have approached
People
the
have
judiciary.
approached, the director CBI, Alok Verma, has approached it.
Correct.
So, why he approached it? Because he felt that arbitrary or with certain political motive, because he was discharging his duties in the manner that he was expected to do, that he was trying to put him in his place, number 2 man and all that. And because of that, he was thrown out overnight, and this midnight coup took place, and the CBI was almost destabilized. It has been made non-functional. So he has gone to Supreme Court. And in a situation like this, where do we go? It is, we have got last hope is for all of us, ex-CBI officer also, as citizen, last hope is judiciary. And we hope that judiciary will set it right and restore the credibility of the CBI. And credibility can be restored only when right steps are taken, not by taking wrong steps. So this is what I feel.
All right, I think we'll have to leave it at that, because anything else, this conversation runs the danger of going into categories and territory that's sub judice, and we don't want to be responsible for that. But thank you both very much. I think, there is no conclusive end to this conversation, for the simple reason, I think the point that you're making about the role of the parliament is an extremely well taken one and a very important one. But at the same time, when you have seen the misuse of institutions by people who have political authority over it, and the Lokpal is not set up, and the CVC may or may not be doing its job correctly, where do we as citizens go if not the courts? What can the courts do when cases do actually appear in front of them? Should they just say it's not our jurisdiction and leave it, or should they actually intervene? I think that's really the crux of this. Thank you both very much for trying to deconstruct a little bit of this for our viewers. Thank you so much.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.